Oh, it's so lovely out here. The snow is falling on my perfectly black, warm t-shirt. I don't know. It's just a virtual background.
We're supposed to get, I think, 18 or 20 feet of snow tomorrow. So
it's either 20 feet or 20 yards. I'm not sure. 20 meters?
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah.
When you're dead, what does it matter?
Yeah. I know, right?
I need to go. I need to move someplace warm.
Yeah, out at the mountains around Lake Tahoe, they only get about 20 feet at a time.
Go into the living room. Sit by the fire.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, have we discovered a theme for this list of wacky things that happened last week?
Yeah, it's a lot of breaches. And we should talk about a concept that's been not just popularized, but kind of embraced, and that is assume breach.
This is the whale watch episode. We're looking for breaches.
Breaches, yes. I wish it was that placid of a scene.
All right, I'm gonna put on my clairvoyant hat and say the name of the show will end up being "Pull Up Your Breeches."
There you go. So for those who don't know, a breach is when the walls of your citadel or a company citadel are perforated and somebody gets in or gets stuff out. Typically, a breach entails someone pulling data out of the organization. And now ransomwares have become effective breaches, because it used to be in the old days ransomware, they would just encrypt your data and ransom it. Now they steal data to then publish to force you to pay the ransom in case you have good backups. So most things nowadays are pulling data and therefore breaches. Assume breach is a scary thing, because what it means is you have to expect that all of your security systems will eventually fail, and therefore you need to stovepipe your data as much as possible.
Stovepipe. Protect.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's tough, because I mean, a lot of people may say, well, I'm really secure, all my data is locked down or whatever, but then you have backups, and then you have old employees' hard drives, and then you have there's all sorts of places that your data may be leaked.
Well, the average company has 17 copies or more of their data in various backups and replications and other stores.
Right. So even if you assume a zero trust model,
which is recommended,
super hard to do, but recommended, it's still, there's a possibility that your data is going to make it out.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's one of the reasons why for PCI certification, you're not supposed to store credit cards.
I don't know what that is. Personal consumer information?
Purchase card information.
Payment card information.
Payment card.
Yeah.
And basically, you're not supposed to store those credit card numbers, though too many vendors do.
Right.
We have a vendor today. Company that I believe is the Pulse TV article.
Oh, yeah.
So before we get into these articles, did anything happen in the Log4j world this week? Last week?
We will say that for the next 6 months, I'm sure.
All right. So what happened in Log4j land?
So an interesting, I'm always the one who's super excited about new breaches, so this part bores me. This is all the legal, geopolitical, blah, blah,
Your story has become tiresome.
Oh, Dwayne's disappointed that the puppy was saved in the end.
I know, right?
Come on.
Oh, they caught the hackers. Too bad.
Where's the drama?
I was hoping for a happy ending. With
I want to see a shootout. Oh, no, that's Patrick.
Hey.
All right, so where are we starting?
So I think we're going to start with the fact that the FTC currently, and that for those of you who maybe not be U.S. citizens listening to this here podcast, the Federal Trade Commission has threatened to sue companies over Log4j data breaches.
What?
So this is interesting. You become a victim of Log4j and lose all your customer data, and the FTC says, "Hey, we're going to sue you at the same."
This is definitely the salt in the wound.
If we could go after these criminals, if only they would register with us.
Right?
If they just tell us who they are, then we can go ahead and sue them and everybody's happy, right?
Well, so I think this is because the FTC is looking at this as malpractice.
Exactly. Yep, you're right.
Okay.
Companies for decades now have felt that if they just ignore the problem, cyber will stop bothering them. We had a friend of ours mutual friend of Dwayne and I said that he was in a very major company, I think a Fortune 500 company, talking to one of their executives, and they were told that when the subject of security comes up, that they are to leave the room. So they have deniability. And those days are ending. That is no longer going to be
I was
the case.
there in that meeting.
Were you in that meeting?
I was in that meeting. Yeah.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, you did. You did. Yeah. We, big round table, lots of leather and leather-bound books and smell of oak.
And somebody said, well, what about security?
And we started talking about security, and the senior executives get up and walk out without saying anything, which is weird.
They just
30 people get up and go to the bathroom all at the same time.
Right? We're like, wow, this is odd.
Did I offend in some way that I didn't know?
I have a quick story of something that is driving me absolutely bonkers here.
Sure.
I've been getting hammer spammed by a register. So it's a Connecticut number. The first 3 digits are always the same. And then the last 4 digits seem to vary. And so, I mean, hammered like 6 times a day. I was getting these spams. And they always leave a message that's just 3 seconds of dead time. So I started blocking the numbers, block the numbers. They slowed down a little bit, and then they just kept coming back.
Wow.
So then I'm on AT&T. So I learned that there's an AT&T call blocker app that you can get. And so I install it, and it says, okay, you're good to go. No charge, but we have a pro version if this doesn't work. So I install that. It's quiet for a couple of days, and then bam, 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 they start coming again. So I pay the $3.99 a month to upgrade to the pro version, which does whatever. I don't know what it does. Yeah. I use a phone.
Work? Does it work?
No, it doesn't. I'm still getting hammered with these people.
So, Carl, for $499, I'll sell you the Super Pro version.
Right. Yeah. I can tell you who's calling you. I think that's AT&T.
Yeah, I'm still getting these calls.
And because you paid your bill, you qualify for a free gift.
You do.
Right. I might have told you guys about this last time. And one of you suggested that if I just play a recording of a fax machine.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I have the YouTube instant up recording of an old fax machine.
Because you want to get on their blacklist.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'll do. Yes, I'm going to do that. Okay. End of story. Now let's get to the FTC threatening to sue companies.
So as I was saying before, I was so politely interrupted.
Oh, no, it was rude. Call a spade a spade.
So, this is the end. It's the ending era. It's not the end, but it's the ending of the era because everyone's sick of it.
Yeah.
You build a system that everybody depends on, and then you throw up your hands and you're like, oh, I didn't know. How would I know any better?
Right.
You have to, if you're going to operate a business, it's starting to become viewed as malpractice to not know what components you've put in your solution,
right.
to not know how those components would be patched, to not understand, how you would react. We were talking to somebody today that had a story about an organization that was 3 weeks down with all of their ordering and all of their invoicing because a supply chain vendor got hacked and hasn't been able to recover.
Wow.
Right.
And so, service level agreements start to become a thing. So this is the FTC saying, look, if you're negligent, if you're operating malpractice, if you're employing technology without due care, we're going to sue you. We're going to protect the customer. And I think that's good. Some people call that an overreach of regulation.
Yeah.
But we're getting to the point where somebody's got to do something about it. And it is preventable.
Well, there is an analog. There's a story here. If you could think of it like, somebody who owns a museum and not putting sufficient locks on the doors or having a sufficient security system in place.
Sure.
And then somebody just walks in and takes a painting and they're like, oh, I don't know.
Actually, right? I think it's worse than that because I think it's more like you having a kitchen that's open to the sidewalk and people can just throw things into the ingredients and kill you because this could take all my data. Supply chain attacks typically steal all the data of the end client. That's what happened in the case of Kaseya. That's what happened in the case of the customer we just talked to today.
Yeah.
It's not just hurting them and their inventory. They're hurting their customers and their customers as well.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. And in this particular case, they talk about companies who are aware of the Log4j implications and doing nothing about it. So it's even worse than that. It's not like, hey, I'm using this particular software package and I didn't know it had Log4j on it, and all my customer data got leaked. And it was really, I purchased this thing from company A, so they didn't disclose to me that it was in there and that sort of stuff. They're not targeting those people. They're targeting the people who know that Log4j is a part of a package that they implement and have been notified and have not taken the proper actions.
So right? I can imagine this in a courtroom, right? And the judge said, so you say you listened to security this week? And they say, well, we were listening, but then, we got tired of the host's stupid jokes and we stopped listening to it. All right, guilty.
Guilty. You should have listened. You should have bought a squirrel. Did you see the movie Rat Race?
No.
Yes.
Oh, that's a callback. Anyway.
Okay.
So I think this is going to be more along the trend of, world getting serious. Well, that means that if you're listening to this and you have a solution, you have software, you have technology in your world, which I don't know why you'd be listening to this podcast otherwise.
Right.
You should start by doing an inventory of everything you have and the solutions. And if something like this comes up, could you afford to shut it off for a week or 3 while you wait for them to come out with a patch? And if the answer is no, torture that vendor or switch vendors.
Right.
And I wouldn't just look at the things that are connected to the public internet. You need to look system-wide.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you want to be really responsible, the companies that we look at that are impregnable or virtually impregnable are paranoid about this stuff all the time. They're not wishing that the boogeyman under their bed will go away. They've set bear traps for the boogeyman, and they know every component of every solution, and they have inventories, and they know, where it would be. These are also companies that would typically have backup hardware in case they got nailed by a disaster or a ransomware.
Right.
But we're moving up that chain. This is an interesting part. So we started talking about breaches. I think that's the rest of the news this week, isn't it?
Yeah, we do. We have, I think there's one thing about supply chain attack, most of its breaches, and then some one-off, maybe ransomware mentions, but those are getting boring.
So let me ask this question. Why do breaches matter other than hiding your private parts?
Pull up your breaches.
Well, those are breachers. Sorry.
No, breaches.
I don't think so. Those are breaches?
That's a
Maybe
Boston
breeches.
breach.
Britches. You ever heard the word britches?
I've heard of britches.
Who made you britches, boy? Pull up your britches.
You're showing your age, Carl.
Wow.
It's revolutionary.
And
I mean war, not futuristic.
Google it, bitches. Google it.
All right. So what I think we should talk about is why does this matter? So there are breaches every day. In fact, this week we have a bunch of them that we can talk about.
Yep.
But why do they matter? So the data gets stolen by a bad guy, and then they can use that data to launch other attacks.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Cellular, they lost 405, which is a strange number, as Dwayne
Which is
out.
awesome. Let's just recognize that for a second. That's awesome. like if you get breached, we're always talking about breaches here, and we're like, oh yeah, it was 1 million users. Oh yeah, that was 2 million users. Right. There's 1 billion passwords, and then U.S. Cellular, like, there's 405, and we know them all. Like, wow, that's impressive.
Why would that be? Why would it be a small number? It's not because they have so few employees or so few customers.
I'm going to assume it's because U.S. Cellular is so on top of their security game.
Well, and what that would be represented by, perhaps the hackers got in, but they couldn't just bulk download everything. They had to individually query.
Yeah, and this particular attack looked like what they were attempting to do was a SIM swapping attack. So we've talked about this before in the past. This is where you con some, cellular company, support engineer, or you get his username or password and log into the systems or whatever, and I try and take Patrick's SIM number, so that's a number that the cell company knows to. When you call Patrick's phone number, it rings his phone because the cell tower talks to his SIM. So if I could call up a support tech and be like, hey, I'm Patrick Hines, and I seem to have dropped my phone in a lake, and I need you to swap it over to this new phone. If I'm convincing enough, and I give that stodgy air like Patrick has.
Oh, very nice.
Nice.
Wait, you haven't mentioned Tomahawk missiles in several minutes. You fail.
Did I mention?
That's what's good. That's what Patrick uses as his security questions. What city were you born in? Tomahawk missile.
The code word is Kill them all.
No wonder people stop listening to this stupid show. You got a guy who does dad jokes, a guy who thinks breaches are awesome, and a guy with Tomahawk cruise missiles in the backyard.
The ragtag group of weirdos.
I'll just play one on TV. So, okay. So this is very targeted. And this data is probably for use by the people hacking. It's probably not going to end up on the dark web.
Okay.
That's interesting. That's important because you might, I think I mentioned it before in the show. A few years back, Marriott got hacked with 500 million records of stay information. And the data never made it to the dark web. And it's believed that the reason it didn't is because the Chinese military actually hacked it and wanted it for their own purposes of tracking assets, international assets.
Did that data include the porn that you watched in your room? And like
not
what the
that
name,
I watched,
the titles?
but what you watched was definitely in that.
Hey Carl, you know what's neat about those TVs?
What?
They're all networked nodes. So you can actually get on that network and then subscribe other people's TVs to things or yours. And then you can watch. Yeah.
Dwayne, we got to hang out more.
We'll go through. Yeah.
We got
at our
hang
next
out more.
conference together.
Yeah.
I'll show you all the neat TV things.
All the
that
things
I've
that
never
we
done.
shouldn't ever
I'm going to
do.
request Dwayne be on a different floor and not know my room number.
I'm never going to use hotel Wi-Fi again.
You shouldn't.
Yeah.
So, all right. So other breaches. Pulse TV?
Pulse TV. So for those of you who may not know who Pulse TV are.
That would be
me. Pulse TV are the as seen on TV things, I believe. I don't know, like the slap chopper.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
like
Ronco, right?
I think, yeah.
Ron Popeil.
The as seen on TV product retailer.
Ginsu Knives.
OxyClean.
Yeah.
As we're going to get a call from like OxyClean, and they're going to be like, we're not associated with.
Please stop saying our name.
Pulse TV. Ron Popeil would be very upset.
He would be. He's rolling over in his grave.
All right, so would be.
A data breach at a U.S. e-commerce website, Pulse TV, may have exposed more than 200,000 customer credit card records. Good thing I never bought anything from Pulse TV.
So if that data were to show up, that data, again, is data that would probably partially show up on the dark web, but for sale because it's got credit card numbers.
Right.
The stuff that shows up on the dark web for anybody to find is generic username, passwords, and hashes and things that you can use to break in. It's usually not the valuable stuff. That's usually for sale instead of just for download. So
take, for example, mixtapes.
Yes, let's talk about them. Because how many users was that?
7,476,940, which is another odd, very accurate listing of user accounts and member records.
What the hell are you guys talking about? Mixtapes.
There's a website that lets you.
There's a website. So on a popular hacking forum, the account credentials and emails of nearly 7.5 million DatPiff users were made available free for download. And this DatPiff site sounds like a place where you can upload and download segments of audio. They call it mixtapes. I'm not entirely sure what's really on this site.
I know about that is DAT is an old magnetic digital format called digital audio tape.
Mm-hmm.
That was right around, I think it was before CDs. And the reason it was so expensive to use is because you could make absolute digital copies. And this was way before people had computer audio and anything. So a little Sony DAT Walkman was like $800 in the late 80s.
Damn.
DAT, digital audio tape. But it's, it is digital.
So this breach is credentials, usernames and passwords.
Yes. Okay.
And so, does the website charge you money? Could you use it to log in and get information to do identity theft? Yeah, probably. This is the data that's going to end up in breach databases. So Have I Been Pwned, run by our good friend, Troy Hunt.
Yeah.
It was a Microsoft regional director with Carl and I, was a security MVP with Microsoft with Dwayne and I. He runs haveibeenpwned.com, and we recommend everybody go check out their risk, because what Troy will do is he'll take that data when it shows up on the dark web and he'll throw it in his database, swizzle it around, and then you can find out if what credentials of yours have been exposed. And that matters because we find people all the time that we tell them, hey, 5 years ago, you had this password that was used on LinkedIn. Oh, no, I'm still using that password. Well, you need to stop. Because password spray is when somebody goes and takes an old password, or actually stuffing is when somebody takes passwords you used in one place and tries them on somewhere else.
I think some of these, providers like Apple and Google and even Microsoft may be hitting that database when you create when you add create a password for a website. Chrome will say, hey, your this password has been breached and you might want to change it.
Well, let's talk about that. So Troy site and other sites will provide you with a dictionary of passwords.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get to the heart of this very, very succinctly. There's a difference between online attack and offline attack. So if I know 5 billion potential passwords that have been breached over the last 10 years, which I can get from Troy's site, I can't use that to try to log into your Office 365 because I'm going to not be allowed to try 5 billion times. Right. I'm certainly not going to be allowed to try 5 billion times in rapid succession so that I can get it done before I age out of the system.
Unless you route it through an auto IP changing proxy.
I knew Dwayne had a way around it.
I could explain how we can do it.
And Dwayne, is that awesome?
Yeah, it is awesome.
Okay.
Career advice for hackers. Sorry, go ahead.
And even then, I believe that Microsoft has delays that they put in. But you would agree, Dwayne, if you had a choice between an online attack that's throttled by the bandwidth, the round trip, and other things, that is far less satisfying as having the hash and doing an offline attack.
Yes.
Because with an offline attack, I can run all 5 billion of those sample passwords against your hash, against your password, in about 2 seconds with our rig. And that means you shouldn't use that password. But if it's an offline attack, you're probably screwed no matter what. Or you're probably in trouble.
Depends on how long the password is and what the algorithm is.
Length is actually the most important factor.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this one too is the passwords that were kept on this diff site, dat-piff site, whatever it is.
You sound like Daffy Duck there.
Dip.
Dat-piff.
Were stored leveraging an older hash algorithm.
MD5.
So MD5. So they took the password, you type in your password, and lots of people think hash algorithms are encryption. They're really not. They're just hashes. Hashing is a one-way function. So if I type in the password, it's going to come out as a bunch of random jumbled characters, and they stored that in the database. And every time you go to the website and you type your password, it goes through this algorithm to rehash it, and it just compares the hashes. So lots of developers go, it's super secure, super easy. I'm going to put it in. We don't hold the password. I have no idea that your password is password.
Yeah.
Problem with that is if you use an older, easy algorithm, like an MD5, you can just easily run through a dictionary attack against those passwords and rehash every password that exists in that database and compare them. So, and that was what was happening here is a lot of those accounts that were breached, because it's using an old hash algorithm, can actually be recovered. And they recovered the passwords for a lot of these. And that's what was on sale on the dark web.
And the kryptonite of having the hashes is, I love salt.
Salt your hash.
You salt your hash.
Sounds like breakfast.
What is salt, Patrick?
Let's say Dwayne has got a hack that lets him get to a website's database. And he can query the database, but he can't do much. And he sees your password hash stored in the database. And he thinks he knows what it might be. So what he does is he creates his own account and he sets his password to what he thinks your password is. And if your record matches his, it's a match.
Yeah, I get that.
With salt, even if he picks the right password,
we still don't know what salt is.
They won't match. It's an extra value. It's a little bit of randomness per account.
So it's like a randomly generated password, let's call it.
Yeah, it's a little extra thing that gets added in so that when you hash the password, it doesn't come to the same hash as someone else who uses the same password.
Right. So it's like entropy.
It is.
Yeah, it's the same type of thing as an initialization vector on the symmetric key.
Still don't know what that is, but
Right.
that's okay. We're gonna skip right over that one. Let me see if I can explain it. So rather than just put in your password, you take your password and append the salt to it, and then that is what
Or
the
interlace
hash
it in some way.
or
Yeah. So like, let's say for simplicity's sake, you take a password and you hash it. And then every other character, you put in a random character. And we know that we've salted every even character in the password is actually garbage. We're going to throw it away before we compare the passwords. That's kind of like what salt is. You're sprinkling in the encrypted data,
The magic pixie
some
dust.
random bits that can be pulled out.
But isn't salt also stored in a database typically?
It depends. There's many different ways to do it. There's the throwaway salt that Dwayne just described. There's static salt, which does have to be saved. It really
There
depends.
might be salt based on the account itself.
Now, Dwayne, your first explanation for that sounded a little bit like, you know how sine and cosine are related to each other by the tangent?
Yeah, right?
I know, right?
Exactly. Thank you, Patrick.
Hey, you know how when you discombobulate the Freem drive from the transfobulator and you get that little glitch in the middle right there? Well, if you just tweak it to the right 90 degrees.
And there you have a circle.
Oh my God.
I'm not going to talk anymore.
It worked. We succeeded.
That's not true. I'm not.
All right. Well, Google salt and hash, but not food related. Password salt hash, and you'll find something. Can we talk about the New York Attorney General?
Yeah, this one's interesting, and I think it piggybacks on what Patrick is talking about here,
Okay.
where you have these passwords and use passwords on different sites, and as those sites get breached, and notice I say as, not if, but
When?
as those sites get breached, your data, your password gets out on the internet, and it gets into these massive, large databases of passwords. Now, you might have been notified. Let's say I had a username and password for Bank of America and their site got breached. They would notify me, hey, your password was breached and somebody knows what it is. You should change it. And I would change it on Bank of America's site. But would I think to change it anywhere else? First off, you should never be using the same password on multiple sites.
That's right.
But I can tell you almost everybody does,
Yeah.
unless they're in the security field. So what this is the New York Attorney General notified 17 companies that around about 1 million accounts were being subjected to credential stuffing. And this is what Patrick was talking about. So credential stuffing is where a hacker or hacking organization finds a massive list of passwords, say from Bank of America or whoever,
Okay.
right? And then they take that list and they don't use it against Bank of America, but they use it against all sorts of other companies.
It's like, think about using your Facebook login for Instagram.
Sure, exactly.
And this is called credential stuffing?
Yep, this is where you're taking these credentials and you're like, okay, cool, I have all these valid users and valid credentials. Instead of me taking, Patrick's email address and trying his email address with 1 billion passwords
I
on
see.
Instagram, let me take a known, email address for him and a known password and use that instead.
Got
And
it.
try a billion known usernames and passwords and see if those actually work
I see.
on the auspices of somebody's going to reuse their password. And sadly, it works quite well.
Very well.
Yeah, that's depressing. It's not awesome, Dwayne.
I love Carl's tone usually. It's awesome.
It's human nature. The people are typically the weakest link. Log4j clouds that.
Yeah.
Log4j makes
Yes.
us think the technology is inherently flawed, and it is, but people are way more inherently flawed. If you could get the people to clean up their acts, there'd be a lot less dependency on the technology.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I still love LastPass, and I'm making my way. I have a document where I have hints, password hints for all the stuff every time I've logged in, like going all the way back to when I was doing this the first time. So I have a history. So now I'm just going down the list. I do a few every day.
Nice.
Just change them up, generate new
good.
passwords.
And whenever possible, if you can save a hint instead of the password, that's excellent, because then you're assuming breach.
I did that, but now everything's in LastPass. So my hint is just LP. LastPass.
Well, yeah, but even when I use a password, see, I'm super paranoid. When I use a password safe, my password safe has no passwords in it. It only has hints.
Well, that's what mine is as well.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
But pretty soon that whole thing is going away because I won't need hints because LastPass remembers all my passwords.
Oh, no, I don't let it. I only have hints saved. I don't have the passwords written even in a password safe.
Yeah, but LastPass keeps your passwords.
Yeah, but I know Dwayne, and he's coming for me.
So you don't use LastPass?
I don't. I use an old form program that's not online.
That's right. You
I
use
only
paper.
store. I don't use paper.
Yeah, paper. Actually, paper would be relatively.
It's called
secure.
Papyrus. Thank you very much. No, I use an older program.
Okay.
Yes.
That is a cryptographically secure program that is not online, that doesn't have a master synchronization,
Right.
and it's password protected with a nice long password, and it only contains hints. It doesn't actually have the password.
So you can't
crazy.
access this from your phone. Like if you're out somewhere and you want to look something up and you're like,
No.
oh, I want to log in, blah, blah, blah.
No.
You're done.
No.
You can't.
Nope.
No,
I don't do
he has
that.
to go home.
I don't do that.
Wow.
I use 1Password online. If 1Password gets breached,
So we just told people not to reuse passwords. You don't mean I only have one password.
I use 1Password for everything.
You mean there's a service called 1Password.
We are all three of us using different strategies that are all workable. Dwayne
Yes.
uses 1Password, use LastPass, and I use
Papyrus.
old guy, box buried in ammo cans.
Number
buried in the
2.
backyard.
Number
Yes.
2 pencil with a stiff eraser.
But I figure if one of these central if LastPass or 1Password gets breached, there are probably way more important passwords in there than mine. Listen, I don't have access to the nukes.
I mean, I have survival kits and ammo and things like that. So I'm not a good
You don't
example.
scare me.
We're different shades of security consciousness here. There's the Carl is a good best practices for the average human being. Dwayne, takes it to the next level, and I am unreasonable.
Nothing in his life is convenient.
All right, so there's a bunch of stories left. We should probably just pick and choose the ones that we want to.
I think it's the lessons that matter.
Talk
I think, the hackers using video, that's just a skimmer.
Yeah, that's the only thing that was interesting about that one, and we'll post the link to this, is we've been talking about credit card skimming, JavaScript and that sort of stuff. And the where you go to a site and there's a JavaScript ad or whatever on the side, and as you type in a credit card, it picks up that information. This is a new article on there was a cloud video player. So you'd go to a website, just like you'd go to CNN.com or whatever, and there's a video player there. Those are hosted in cloud, usually in content distribution networks. So there was one of those that was breached, and about 100 different real estate agencies that show videos of homes were using that player. So anybody who visited those sites, potentially their data was stolen. So it's just, you got to be careful as to what sites you're using and know what type of data you're typing in when you're using them.
Crazy. Using a video player to steal credit cards.
Oh, that's awesome.
Damn, I wish I thought of that.
Right? Oh, so good.
All right, well, there's a bunch of ransomware stories. Do you want to just blow through those really quickly?
Yeah, so two that came to mind. We had talked a couple weeks ago about this brew pub chain that had been breached, and very little data was out about it. Now there's quite a bit more information around the ransomware attack.
Okay.
Ballpark 30,000 employee records data was stolen, and this is all of their prior as well as current employees. So quite a bit of information stolen there and / encrypted. I know they were down for a period of time. Another ransomware attack this week that bubbled up to the top was the Carthage schools outage. This is, here again, straight up, nothing special about it. Straight up ransomware attack. Somebody ran something they shouldn't. It shut down all the systems in that particular area. Campus internet was down. Phones were down for about 3 weeks. So sounds reasonably serious. It is interesting to read through some of these articles, being an offensive red team attacker, right?
Yeah.
A guy who's always looking to get people to click on things. Because I'm always looking for, job tips from some of the hackers out there. We compare notes. What did you do to get them to click on things? In some of these articles I read, they're very much like, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt. Like you read what should they have done? Oh, well, the FBI said that anything you click on the internet or download and run or view a web page, you could run ransomware. And although that is true, more often than not, it's going to be you clearly following a path you shouldn't have, right? Somebody sent you an invoice you weren't expecting,
Right.
and you decided to download it and unzip it and run it. Somebody sent you a link to a site that you've never been on before, and you don't recognize the number, and you click on it, right? So there are some pretty common sense things that keep you out of the news.
Patrick, is there any update on the U.S. government going after these guys? Have they caught anybody yet?
They're really tight-lipped about what they're doing, and usually the people who take credit are like Microsoft or Google, and also some of their targets I'm not sure that they would divulge other than in federal court when they have them. So I assume that it is continuing to go. I assume that Cyber Command is in the fight and going to stay in the fight, and I'm actually quite hopeful about that. But I think the big changes that we're seeing is things like the FTC's move. And here's the question. Is this going to be the beginning of a concerted effort by the government to actually get in the game? And are they going to start fighting the cyber war the way everybody else is fighting it under this administration in a way they've never done it under any other administration? That would be big news, and that would be quite surprising. But I'd be happy for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You talk about making it illegal to pay ransom.
I do all the time.
Right. But you do start seeing you are seeing some movement towards that, like the FTC saying, "Hey, if you knew about a breach and you allowed customer data to leak, then we're gonna prosecute." Well,
and the insurance companies are a big part of it. As the insurance companies stop paying, stop insuring the ransom amounts, a lot of them will stop getting paid.
Yeah,
because police departments don't have $5 million to pay a ransom unless the insurance company pays it.
Right.
Wow. If the insurance company says, I'm not paying it anymore, oh, well, you're out of luck. Guess you better have a backup.
Well, that's a really great way to kick off the year with breaches and warnings about breaches. And the big warning is, it's going to happen to you, and sooner or later. And
soon breach.
You get breached, and it's determined that you did not take appropriate measures to mitigate your risk, you probably will be sued. You could be, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's still time to get your ducks in order, but I think that day is coming.
Yeah. All right, guys. Happy New Year again.
Likewise.
Hope you're having a good one.
Stay out of trouble.
Not likely.
Keep your powder dry.
All right. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.